I'm here at a very authentic spot in Jakarta. It's a Western hotel, and I'm here with Michael Smith from Yahoo, known as Smitty, a man that the Indonesians love, mostly because he's acquired one of their companies. Michael, thank you for joining us. Welcome to TechCrunch TV. I'm sure it's been a lifelong ambition to be on TechCrunch TV.
It's going to be great. Send something to my mother.
So you get the credit in some corners of the Indonesian web scene for putting them on the map because you did one of the first acquisitions of a startup by a big Western multinational. Tell us a little bit about the company and why you bought them.
Yeah, so I think it was a team effort, right, from Yahoo, but I was the one that kind of led the charge. I had been coming to Indonesia a lot, and not just Indonesia, so I go all over Southeast Asia, and we were looking for, Yahoo's always trying to achieve scale through locally relevant opportunities, right? So we had done a lot of research in Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, for things that were very social and mobile and would make sense in where we would acquire them and maybe around the region. And so a lot of homework kind of led us to Copral, and it took a while to get a deal done because no one's really done a real deal of the size where it's like a Yahoo and a small company. So when it comes to the legal framework and lawyers and trademarks, there was some homework to be done. So it wasn't a slam dunk, and we were on edge actually for a lot of months trying to get it done because it was new for everybody, including the lawyers and stuff. But yeah, we got it done. We're the first one. I think we kind of kicked off what I think is some attention in Indonesia. Hopefully it's not the end of it all. But for us, you've been in the region a few times. It's a very social, mobile, crazy crowd when it comes to how they use their phones to do things. And we think that it's applicable to other parts of the region, and that's what made Copal really interesting.
So they basically Foursquare, but in Indonesia, or are they different?
I think they're different in that a couple things. They really focused on the fact that they're public. So I'll admit, I'm not a big user of Foursquare. I'm one of those guys that kind of puts the binders on and focuses on what I'm working on. But one of the things I've noticed from playing around is that with all those devices, it's only your friends that know what you're doing. And this kind of breaks everybody's social rules a little bit. But with Copral, unless you've said you're private, everything you do is public. So like today, to give you an example, I was at the Grand Indonesia getting some Krispy Kremes.
I was the Grand Indonesia. You know where I was? I was at that store, Damn, I Love Indonesia, where they have all the historical t-shirts. I love that place.
So I was actually in Krispy Kreme's buying some donuts, and I checked in, and somebody who isn't my friend, knows me, said, hey, we're down at the Starbucks, come say hi. And I went down and took a photo with them and said hello. And I don't think with Foursquare you couldn't really do that because they would only know that you're there if they're your friends. So Copral is a little more public, and it's a little more about the stream. So you post photos when you check in, you comment on other people's photos, comment on other people's check-ins. So it's a little more of a location network per se, but location's a big part of it. So I think anytime you do location stuff, you're compared to all the main players, and obviously Foursquare is the front runner. But with Facebook doing places, that's huge too, right? So we think it's a little bit different in that regard. We also really attuned it towards what I call the dumb phones. So no offense to Nokia, but like your Symbian S40s and stuff that they do little browsers, but they don't do anything else that well. So even a guy with that kind of WAP experience can find a place, he can check in, and he can even post a photo. And the Indonesians are very conscious of that user ecosystem because despite what we're running around with, not everybody has a BlackBerry or a smartphone.
Right. And you said by the ComScore numbers, it's bigger than Gowalla now. Is that right?
We're in Indonesia, we're in the top 10 in social networking. I don't think Gowalla is even in that list. I don't think Foursquare is in that list as well. So for Indonesia, we're in the top 10. My gut tells me that we're like maybe number 2 in the world, but it really depends which people you want to put in the list. So we're growing, we've gotten big, but the competition's immense, right?
And number 2 in terms of what? In terms of users, traffic, or check-ins?
Registered users.
Okay, and how many?
Can't give you the number.
So number 2, so we'll figure it out. Bigger than Gowalla.
Yeah.
All right, great. Let's talk generally a little bit about Yahoo. So Yahoo's, we give Yahoo a lot of shit in Silicon Valley, some of which is deserved. But Yahoo's been really good in Southeast Asia. It's very big in Thailand, very big in Vietnam. Even in India, I see Yahoo billboards everywhere.
Yeah, we own the airport, right? You get the Yahoo sign when you land. So.
Right. So, we hear a lot about Yahoo's China and Japanese business, which are obviously a big part of the stock price. But tell me about why Yahoo's done well in Southeast Asia generally, and in some of these more nascent markets like Indonesia that, frankly, everyone was ignoring until the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, so it's tough, right? I think Yahoo's always had a big APAC business, right? It's come out of Taiwan, and we've always spidered out from Taiwan. The Japanese business is a joint venture. China's a joint venture, and all that's very public, right? So nothing to say there. But when it comes to what we've done in these markets, we're still a kind of a portal company, right? Like, you log into the Indonesian front page, and we're pushing millions of page views, right? And we do that in every country. We have locally relevant content, partners, and without quoting stats, probably in every one of our markets, we have some property that's in the top 5. Whether it be a travel site or a celebrity site or a movie site, and that's what a lot of people in America probably don't know. And the brand recognition for Messenger and mail is massive. Right? We've even trademarked YM here because people call it YM. To give you a funny story, when I first started traveling the region for Yahoo, I was stuck in a visa line in Cambodia, and I was wearing this homemade T-shirt I had that has a big Yahoo logo and my name on the back because I go to these conferences and I want people to know my email. And I had a little Cambodian guy come up and kind of tap me on the shoulder, and he goes, Yahoo, huh? I go, yeah. He goes, do you work for Yahoo? I go, yeah. He goes, come with me. Stamp my thing and put me through the line. I don't think if you're Google or Facebook or Microsoft that would happen, right?
Yeah.
It's affinity in these marketplaces.
Right.
It's come through years and years of hard work.
Yeah.
Yahoo's Indonesian name was trademarked 7 years ago. That's how long we've been traipsing through these regions, and now we're just finally probably reaping that platform foundation.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say I benefit from it because when I travel, I always use a Yahoo backpack that I got when I hosted a show on Yahoo Finance, and I get so made fun of for it in the Valley. And when I travel through Asia, people really actually think it's cool. I get this. I mean, never had my passport expedited or anything like that, but I definitely have had people in airports be like, "Do you work for Yahoo?" Which is. It's
totally different. I mean, it's night and day. When I go to Silicon Valley, I always have a great time. I'm at the Yahoo campus, but I know that I want to come back because it's we're minor celebrities in this part of the world.
Right.
And it's great.
That's awesome.
It's very appreciative.
So we talked about what sets Yahoo apart in the region. Let's talk a little bit about what sets Indonesia apart in the region. Everyone focuses on size and the how social has just exploded here. But beyond audience, what do you see in terms of entrepreneurs that you meet with? What do you see in terms of technical chops? Is this market for real?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's for real, and I think that there's no reason not to assume it's important from the size that it is, and we're at 13% internet population for a country that's 200 million. The latest stats, even over the last couple of months, is that the internet page views and interaction has grown about 25% in just 2 months.
That's insane.
It's crazy numbers, right? So you have to say it's important from that. There's no doubt about it. But if I look at it from a regional perspective, I would say they know how to build things at scale, and that's important. So from technical chops, if you look at the list of Southeast Asian universities, I'm pretty sure Indonesia is always in the top 5 for scores and aptitudes and technical realm. So that's big. And what we found to be very cool is they love open source, right? So if you look at the strength of WordPress, you look at the strength of PHP, Linux, that they embody wanting to push open source, and I think that makes them great developers for systems, right? And we've noticed that that's been very fundamentally the case when it comes to building systems and stuff. I think the language is getting better all the time. I think we've chatted about this. You can get by in English here. Maybe you're always going to do better with a native language, but you can land here maybe versus Vietnam and Thailand and still be pretty lethal and get stuff done. And I think that's important.
You can say shit. That's fine. Yeah, yeah.
I'll get in trouble for this
We
later.
say worse.
So, I also just think that they embody a very easy kind of laid back style. You see that in the culture and like the Balinese thing, that they're just really easy to deal with. The demeanor is one that they don't really get uptight. There isn't a lot of arguing. And, I myself have pushed my team for days on end, hours on end, just so we could win, and they're okay with that, right? They don't. They're nice people to deal with. So we've found it to work, right? Whether other people are going to replicate that success remains to be seen. But from being here, everybody who's anybody, except we established Facebook and Twitter, is here trying to figure out what's going to make this place even bigger.
Right. So, is the time now for Indonesia? This is a country that generally has had a lot of false starts, and it reminds me a little bit about the early Web 2.0 days when so many people were really, people don't like to be dumb, and people don't want to be proven wrong again, and people are really reticent to kind of believe in the consumer internet after they'd believed so hard and then been burned. I think it's a little bit the same with Indonesia on a kind of macro foreign investment scale because of the financial crisis and just also all the natural disasters this country has had. A lot of people can't get in and out of the airport. I may never be coming home. And I mean, you also had the U.S. really propping up Suharto for a long time, and then there's some bad things about that guy. So I mean, is the time now in Indonesia? Are people going to be hoodwinked if they believe in this country again?
I think so. I'll do a little plug for something because we had some really neat guest stars. We did this podcast This Week in Asia. And last week we had Weimar, which is actually Satya's dad, who's involved with Copal. He has 40,000 Twitter followers. He was the presidential spokesperson for the regime after Suharto. Right? Then the other guest star was the guy Johar, which you may have heard of. He runs the Indonesian Public Exchange. A lot of people don't know, but anybody who's plugged into the internet in Indonesia has to plug into his exchange, and it's run like a consortium. It's a non-government entity, and if you're not plugged in, you're not sharing bandwidth with the rest of Indonesia. I asked these two guys that same thing, that is it ready now? And both their answers are, it is. And the reason they believe it is because they don't think that the political setbacks can get any stronger than they've been in the past. That democracy has largely taken hold, and that people don't want to go backwards. And even though it's not perfect, there's still corruption, and, the traffic's bad, it doesn't feel like it's going to go backwards, except for traffic, which is probably going to get worse and worse and worse. And then what Johar says is that the internet's too big now to unwind. That the politicians use it, the people use it to fight with the politicians use it to talk with the people, that everybody expects that to be the normal behavior, that his feeling is you can't unwind it now. So I think apart from any major Asian crisis, which, with the currency and all these crazy things that are happening, you can never say never.
Right.
But the footing seems to be very, very solid. And I think that's coming with the appetite at the same time for companies getting more interested in emerging markets.
Right.
You just have to put Indonesia in that list. You can't take it out. Right?
So last question, what's the single biggest challenge for, getting to the point where Indonesia isn't bragging about being the biggest, Facebook audience, but where, Indonesia has its own Tencent, or Indonesia has its own Alibaba? I mean, is it payments?
Yeah, I think it is. So for me, I think it's payments, and I think there's kind of a stranglehold on the old way of doing banking, and that is yet to unwind a little bit. The big guys haven't decided how to do the easiest transactional ecosystem, but everybody's talking about it. My gut tells me that if the telcos or somebody solved it with phones, it could get really interesting, but people say that they're not working on it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's payments, and I think it's somebody pushing kind of an Indonesian ecosystem for a platform that's not Facebook, that's not somebody else, right? Not that there won't always be the other things, but I think people take something seriously when it's coming from here. And it's yet to happen, but my gut tells me we're getting close to it, and everybody's fishing for it. And that kind of tells me that times have changed. And as you know from coming, the planes are full now getting here, and that tells me that it's not fringe now. It's fairly mainstream to involve Indonesia into your
right. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to your white wine and your Banana Republic shopping. Take care and keep us posted on the next one you buy.
All right.